The old ranch, with its sprawling fields and weathered barn, was usually a place of quiet solitude for John. At 60, his days were measured by the rising sun and the needs of his animals. He'd lived alone for years, the silence a familiar companion. But today, a different kind of quiet filled his dusty pickup truck, the heavy, anxious silence of two little girls in the back seat. 9-year-old Mia stared out the window, her expression unreadable. Beside her, 6-year-old Lily clutched a worn-out teddy bear, her big brown eyes wide with a mixture of fear and wonder. They were sisters, recently orphaned, and John, a distant relative they'd never met, was their last hope. The social worker had called him, her voice professional but strained. "It's temporary," she'd said. "Just until we find a more permanent placement." John had agreed without hesitation. How could he not? As they pulled up to the rustic farmhouse, the engine's rumble died, and the sounds of the ranch took over the lowing of cattle, the distant whinny of a horse. John turned to the girls. "Well, this is it. Welcome to your new, temporary home." He tried to smile, but it felt awkward. He wasn't used to children. He was a man of routines, of calloused hands, and quiet evenings. Lily's tiny voice broke the silence. "Do you have puppies?" John was taken aback. He hadn't expected a question. He chuckled, the sound gruff from disuse. "No, not puppies. But we have a border collie named Patches. He's old, a little grumpy, but a good boy." Lily's face lit up, a small, hopeful sunbeam in the gloom. Mia, however, remained silent, her gaze fixed on the peeling paint of the porch. She seemed to carry the weight of the world on her small shoulders. The first few days were a clumsy dance of adjustment. John cooked meals that were hearty, but probably not what little girls were used to. He burned the pancakes on the first morning and nearly set off the smoke alarm. Lily had giggled, but Mia had just watched him, her expression a careful blank. It was Mia who worried him. While Lily chased butterflies and cautiously made friends with Patches, Mia was a shadow. She'd help with chores without being asked, her movements efficient and serious. She'd read books in a corner, her small face a mask of concentration. John tried to draw her out. He'd point out a newborn calf or a hawk circling high above. "See that, Mia? A red-tailed hawk? Beautiful, isn't it?" Mia would nod, a flicker of interest in her eyes, but it would vanish as quickly as it appeared. She was guarding her heart, building walls John didn't know how to breach. He learned from the social worker that Mia had been the one to find their parents after the accident. The thought sent a chill down his spine. This little girl had seen too much. One afternoon, John found Mia sitting on the top rail of the corral fence, watching him work with a young colt. He walked over, his boots kicking up dust. "He's a bit stubborn, this one. Needs a gentle hand." Mia didn't look at him. She just said softly, "Lily likes it here." John leaned against the fence beside her. "Do you like it here, Mia?" She shrugged, a small, heartbreaking gesture. "It doesn't matter if I like it." John's heart ached. What was going on in that little head? Before he could ask, she continued, her voice barely a whisper. "The social worker called. I heard her. She said she found a family. For one of us." The world seemed to stop. John felt a cold dread creep into his chest. A family. For one of them, they were going to be separated. He hadn't even considered the possibility. "What did she say, Mia?" he asked, his voice low and urgent. Mia finally turned to look at him, and her eyes were filled with a desperate plea that shattered his soul. "They want a little girl, a young one. It's like Lily." She took a shaky breath. "They don't want a 9-year-old. Nobody ever does. They think we're too old. It's too much trouble." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she fought them back with a fierceness that was far too adult for her age. "So," she said, her voice cracking, "when they come, can you tell them to take Lily? She's the good one. She's sweet, and she doesn't cause any trouble. She deserves a real family, a mom and a dad." She looked down at her small, scuffed shoes. "Can you take her instead of me?" John was speechless. The selflessness of her request, the sheer raw pain behind it, hit him like a physical blow. This child was willing to sacrifice her own chance at happiness, her own sister, just so that Lily could have a better life. She had already accepted that she was unwanted, a leftover. In that moment, John didn't see a difficult child. He saw a hero, a tiny, broken-hearted hero. He said nothing. Couldn't. Words felt hollow, useless. Instead, he slid his arm around her small shoulders and pulled her into a hug. She was stiff at first, like a frightened animal. But then, something inside her broke. The dam of unshed tears burst, and she began to sob, her small body shaking with grief and fear. She buried her face in his flannel shirt, and John just held on, his own eyes burning. He held her until the storm of her sorrow began to quiet, until her sobs turned into hiccuping breaths. He didn't make any false promises. He didn't say everything will be okay. Instead, he just held her, letting his presence be the promise. That evening, he made a phone call. His conversation with the social worker was short, his voice firm and resolute, leaving no room for argument. A week later, the social worker's car pulled up the gravel driveway. Mia saw it, and her face went pale. She grabbed Lily's hand, her knuckles white. John walked out onto the porch to meet the woman. He stood tall, the quiet rancher suddenly a fortress. The social worker, a kind woman named Mrs. Davis, looked at him with an uncertain smile. "John, I came to discuss the placement options. We have a wonderful family interested in Lily." Before she could finish, John held up a hand. "There's been a change of plans, Carol." He looked from the nervous woman to the two girls huddled together on the porch steps, then back. "They're not going anywhere." Mrs. Davis looked confused. "But John, we discussed this. The arrangement was temporary. Are you sure you're prepared for this? 2 children is a huge responsibility." John's gaze was unwavering. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." He then walked over to the girls and knelt down, so he was at their eye level. He looked at Mia, whose eyes were wide with disbelief and a fragile, flickering hope. "You two are sisters," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Sisters belong together, period." He then looked at both of them. "This ranch is big. My heart, as it turns out, is even bigger. There's more than enough room for both of you, if you'll have me." Lily, ever the innocent, beamed and threw her arms around his neck. "Does this mean we get to stay with you in patches forever?" John hugged her back, his eyes still locked on Mia. "Forever," he confirmed. And for the first time since she had arrived, Mia smiled. It wasn't a big smile, just a small, tremulous curve of her lips, but to John, it was more beautiful than any sunrise he had ever seen. It was a smile of relief, of hope, of finally finding a safe harbor in a storm. The social worker, who had been watching the scene unfold, had tears in her eyes. She simply nodded, a silent understanding passing between her and the old rancher. The paperwork, she knew, would be a formality. This was right. This was home. John didn't just take one of them. He took them both, and in doing so, he didn't just save 2 little girls. They, with their laughter and their love, saved him right back, filling the quiet corners of his life and his heart with a joy he never knew he was missing. The old ranch wasn't just a place of solitude anymore. It was a family. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that warms the soul.